today is a bit of a unique video for me. For the last few years, I've kept up with Nando v Movies YouTuber collaborative events, having made entries for one villainous scene and one musical scene respectively. But now, alas, we have reached the end of an era, as Nando has launched his last collaborative effort, known aptly as One Last Scene. And I want to add my contribution to it whilst also getting to talk about my absolute favorite series of all time. And no, it's not Metroid, and it's not Tomb Raider either, it's... That would be Nier and Drakengard, the franchise developed from the brain of one rather odd man, Yoko Taro.
Nier Automata T-shirt. Nier Automata T-shirt. Nier Automata T-shirt. Nier Automata T-shirt. Nier.
While he may come off as a bit of a goofball, Yoko Taro is one of the finest thinkers in our gaming medium and is well known in the industry for his unique style of storytelling, and has himself been quoted as saying he never wants to make the same game twice. But what is most pertinent today is Mr. Taro's personal philosophies and how they intersect with his games. In the world of Drakengard and Nier, which are connected, very rarely do you find people who end up with a traditionally happy ending. According to Taro, sourced from a Game Informer interview, he had this to say on the subject, quote, "The reason why I created endings that end on a death is because, until now, I was creating games where you would kill a lot of enemies, but I've always felt that it doesn't feel right when the protagonist has a happy after they've killed so many enemies during the course of their journey." And indeed, I think Mr. Taro is right. Why should characters like this achieve happy endings? Zero, the protagonist of the first chronological game, may have been a child prostitute abandoned without a name, and may have ultimately been fighting a fight that would have saved the world. But in between those 2 points, she killed thousands and thousands of people with no remorse. Indeed, she killed so much and so often, she doesn't even remember why she kills anymore. And she ends up being stabbed in the back and left to bleed out at worst, and sealed away for all eternity at best. The world she left behind will be the one that would be inherited by the protagonist of Drakengard 1, Kaim, and he would inherit it. Where he is on the surface a tragic figure who watched his family get slaughtered by a dragon and his home destroyed by the Emperor, he is not some plucky rebel soldier. Kaim is a murderous psychopath who relishes only in the slaughter of his enemies, to the point he murders children without mercy, and he ends up devoured by his sister at worst, and at best, shot out of the sky with a missile. However, the most important example leading to the real topic of this video is the story of Nier, a doting father, or brother, depending on the versions, who is simply trying to take care of and eventually attempt to rescue his daughter/sister. However, along the way, he has to kill so many beings, and not just kill them, mind you. He intentionally ignores any and all evidence that speaks to their innocence or their sentience of his enemies for the sake of finding and rescuing his daughter. Now, something that Nier's journey reminds me of is comparing him to Joel from The Last of Us, and perhaps there's a video in that for the future, but the important point here is Nier's actions doom the human race to extinction. And again, Taro gives Nier a bad ending where he says, quote, "That's why in Replicant and Gestalt, or my previous titles, the protagonist pretty much ended up dying because I didn't feel it was right for them to have a happy ending." However, this makes way for the game that I actually want to focus on, Nier Automata. And then we have Nier Automata, a game set 10,000 years past the events of the original Nier, in a world in which android forces built by the humans and machine lifeforms created by the aliens fight a never-ending war over control of the Earth. This game stars 3 protagonists, 2B, 9S, and A2. And firstly, I want you all to listen to this clip from 2B at the beginning of the game.
Everything that lives is designed to end. We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. Is this a curse? Or some kind of punishment? I often think about the god who blessed us with this cryptic puzzle, and wonder if we'll ever have the chance to kill him.
Now, this is not the titular last scene, but it gives us right off the bat an idea of how much suffering the so-called cycle of life and death has put upon these characters. To these androids, the cycle of life and death was started by their gods, the humans, as with the exception of No Way from Drakengard 2, which is a game in a timeline that doesn't lead to Automata, every previous protagonist left behind a world that would lead to Automata. Zero left behind a world in which the cult of the Watchers would form, a cult ruled by her direct descendants which enabled Red Eye disease to take hold. This same disease would be what would lead to 2B's death and 9S's insanity. Kaim left behind a world in which the pawns of the gods, the Watchers, would enter the world of Nier, a world where white chlorination syndrome would spread and lead to the slow decline of humanity, which Nier, the person, in his single-minded quest to save his daughter, slaughtered the only being that would keep humanity around. Indeed, by the time 2B remarks her wish to kill her gods, it's too late. The humans are already gone, and both the androids made in their own image and the machines so enamored by their memories of humanity are left to be haunted by the specter of their previous failings. But unlike the humans before them, this trio is never allowed to just die. They've killed thousands of machines, 2B and 9 have been killed dozens of times, and A2 has killed them both many times as well. You see, unlike the humans that preceded them, these androids have their memories saved to a server. So should they die, they simply load back into new bodies and do it again and again and again and again. But then, the fact they go through all this fighting and dying by their own hands is what separates them from the humans who made them. According to Yoko Taro himself on the matter, to quote, 2B and 9S from the time they were given life, they've been killing a lot of enemies, but they've also been killed by them many, many times and regenerated many times. They've actually been killing each other, which you find out at the very end many, many times as well. But I felt that kind of cleansed them of their sins for killing so many enemies, which made me feel that a happy ending was more fitting for those two. End quote. However, breaking that cycle of life and death isn't something that is just given to you. It is something that you and the players and the characters themselves have to take for themselves. And to 2B's credit, there is one more god that can be killed, Yoko Taro himself. And so, one of the greatest endings in video game history commences in which the players themselves, humans, the very beings responsible for the sorry state of affairs that led to the world of Automata, come together to destroy the entire development team behind the games. And this finally leads to the final and true ending of the game, and for now, the final ending of the last mainline Nier game. Watch.
Everything that lives is designed to end. They are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death. However, life is all about the struggle within this cycle. That is what we believe. Pod 153 to Pod 042. How is it going?
I am embarrassed.
Why is that?
I launched a suicide attack, and yet, here I am, still alive. I must look very silly.
Do not feel bad about it. We are alive, after all. And being alive is pretty much a constant stream of embarrassment.
That concept is a bit too abstract for me to understand at this time. I will save it in my list of things to analyze later.
Question, Pod 042. Did the data salvage restore all of their past memories?
Yes.
And are those recovered parts of the same design as previous ones?
Yes.
Then, won't that simply lead us to the same conclusion as before?
I cannot deny the possibility. However, the possibility of a different future also exists. A future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.
In today's gaming landscape, there is often a need to make a clear-cut, good or bad ending. But here I feel that Yoko Taro does something more with this ending. 2B, A2, and 9S still live in the exact same horrible world from before, but now having been cut out from the network and given their freedom, they can do what they wish with their lives, and when the time comes, they can die a true death. It is a strikingly optimistic look on life in which I think the true ethos of Yoko Taro's philosophy finally becomes apparent. A future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.